Hey everyone, it is Tanisha Coffey, aka the Lofty Entrepreneur here. I'm the owner of the Lofty Entrepreneur and the Rock Solid Financial Brands. And as always, I'm bringing you the best tips, tools, and advice to help you succeed in business. And today, wow, we have a good one. Now, I work with small business owners all the time, helping them with their marketing, their business, and their financial strategies. And one of the top questions I get is about funding and cash flowing their business. So today we're demystifying business funding and talking money strategies for business owners. Now, my special guest today is commercial funding specialist, Ms. Nia Jackson Mcclure with Transcend Commercial Capital. Hey, Nia, how are you?
Hey, Tanisha. Thank you so much for having me. I am great. And how are you doing on this wonderful day?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful, wonderful. Talking money is always fun.
Absolutely. Anytime we can learn and talk some money in the process, that's a good thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I really want to take this to a very basic level because the people who listen to this and watch are at varying levels. So I want to start basic, and then hopefully we can get into a little bit more kind of advanced, talk about business funding. My goal, I really want people to listen to this, to hear you, to hear your expertise, hear some things that I have to say. And I want them to walk away from this podcast and be like, oh my goodness, this was the best 20, 30 minutes I spent in my life to help me to understand the step that I need to take as a business owner to move my business forward, no matter what step they're at. So, you ready?
No pressure, no pressure. I'm ready.
A
Let's
bit,
get into it.
All right, so I want to start off. Let's start talking about basically the different types of business funding options that business owners have, right? Um, I know a lot of times when I started my business years and years ago, all I knew about was business loans, and for me, that was very daunting. I'm like, how am I supposed to get a loan if I'm starting out and I don't have any money? Because that's why I'm coming to you for a loan in the first place.
Right.
So first, I just want people to understand loans. Yes, they are a huge funding option. There's grants out there. There's business lines of credit. There's business credit cards. There's credit cards that you get personally that you can use for business. Okay. So there's all these different types. Some of they have their pros and cons. I don't know if you have a finance background. I know you're doing, commercial capital at this point. If you can kind of chime in on some of the pros and cons of some of those, that would be great.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Tanisha, you're absolutely right. There are a ton of different options when it comes down to funding your business, especially if you're a first-time entrepreneur. It's the classic chicken before the egg thing, right? So I'm starting a business and I need money so I can do what I need to do with the business, but then I also don't necessarily, have the money and I need to do whatever it takes to get it. And I'm not really sure what that is and nobody's really helping me. So, definitely the navigating it can be a challenge. But you're absolutely right. There's going to be some of those funding options, secured or unsecured lines of credit, for example, that may be better for someone starting out. So a lot of entrepreneurs, of course, are, they're grinding it out. They're still working full time. That's a great opportunity. And the what you hear a lot of the times, the myth out there is, oh, it's, you can just go out there and immediately get, 20 grand for your business. And, you're a new business and everybody wants to give you money. And that's partially true, right? So we want to help businesses get funded. But then the other part of that is when you're just starting out, your personal self, you are your business credit. So your personal credit a lot of the times has to stand in for that. There are some exceptions. Some of those exceptions come with vendor credit, and we can talk about that in a deeper dive a little bit later on. But
Let me pause you
yeah,
because I want to unpack some things that you've said, right?
yes,
So,
yes,
for the newbie, unsecured versus secured, what does
yes.
that mean?
Yes, so unsecured funding is going to be like your credit card type of funding, right? So what that essentially means is I'm signing on the dotted line. I'm not necessarily having to put up any collateral. I don't have to put in my house. I don't have to put in my car in order to be able to get this funding. That is going to be some of the most flexible types of funding that you can get when you're an entrepreneur starting out. So
Right.
it's definitely a great option to consider when you're first making that leap and getting started.
Right. And then, so is that kind of similar language, PG versus non-PG, personal guarantee versus non-personal guarantees. People will
Yes.
hear that verbiage sometimes.
Yes, very similar. So you might hear, for example, a signature loan. A signature loan is another type of what is mostly considered unsecured loan. That means you're signing for it, you're personally guaranteeing it. So you might hear PG, you might hear unsecured, or you might hear signature. Everything in that category is generally saying, hey, you don't have to have collateral for this type of loan.
Right. Now, that typically is going to be probably the easiest type of business funding to get, in the form of kind of that credit card. But here's the caveat.
Mhm.
You notice she said you're signing for it. You're. That means you, not your business, right?
That's right.
So that means that what you do with that credit impacts your personal credit as well.
So there are to that point, there are different types that both will and won't. A lot of the times when you're starting out, there are a lot of great options to be able to work with that are a little bit more friendly, a little bit more entrepreneur friendly. And what that means is you still personally guarantee it. However, it may not be something that reports on your credit as long as you pay as agreed. If you default, however, that means you're personally guaranteeing it. That falls back on you. That falls back on your personal credit. So there's some important distinctions that you want to be able to kind of make as you're kind of going through that process.
Okay, so let's jump to talking about the guaranteed loans.
Yes.
Okay, the secured. All right, so let's open that can of worms and tell people the difference so they can start to understand that.
Yes. So secured loans are going to be, they're going to be a range, right? Secured loans can be accounts receivable types of funding. So entrepreneurs out there who, for example, they may be in transportation and they service other companies, right? And so other companies may pay them monthly on retainer for whatever that service is. So that might be a type of funding that is technically secured by those accounts receivable or by those companies that are essentially paying that other company for those services. So that's one secured type, right? And then you have a whole gamut of real estate or investment type of investment property loans. That's another type of collateralized or secured loan. Another type that people don't talk about as much, but certain SBA loans are secured loans as well. So those can be secured by a number of things. They can be secured by your 401k, the amount in your 401k. There's ways to structure that. Those can be secured by other personal property that you may have. Even if you're a serial entrepreneur and you have multiple businesses, some of those loans can be secured by the value of other businesses.
Right.
So there's a myriad of ways that we would consider security or a secured loan, ranging from all types of property all the way up to collateralized or real estate funding. So whatever that property is, that Airbnb or whatever the case is.
Right. And I want to kind of interject in here real quick because, putting on my other hat, rock solid financial hat. So many people don't know one of the uses of like life insurance products is you can use those for various ways to fund your business, right? We're not going to take a huge deep dive into that today, but for instance, you just mentioned about the SBA loans. A lot of times SBA loans will require collateral. Sometimes you can use a life insurance policy and sometimes it'll be required as collateral for that loan.
Yep.
Life
Little
insurance.
known fun fact. They do. That is something that they will want disclosed. And we will ask you on that SBA form when you're applying for an SBA type of funding. So absolutely.
Right. So if you guys are listening, be sure to have that in place, right? If you want, well, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into readiness, but for this specific type
Yeah.
of loan, if you're going to do that, that's one of those things you have in place. A life insurance policy can be fairly inexpensive. It's going to be for the amount of, the amount of the loan in comparison to what you're getting. Wow. It's one of the most smartest strategic ways to fund something instead of taking equity out of your house or something of that nature that is, much more risky to lose and cost you much, much more. So, for those of you, if you're thinking about that, it can take anywhere, if you're underwriting it, which is smarter, it usually results in a better rate for you. That could take anywhere from, 4 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks to get you approved. So if you're wanting to get this loan funding, you want to start the life insurance policy process before that. So you're ready when you fill out that paperwork, you're like, yep, I got it.
That's right.
One box checked. Okay.
And leverage is one of those things that, we speak to all the time. And Tanisha, I'm so glad you brought that up, because a lot of people don't think about, insurance and all of these other ways, these other investment vehicles as ways to be able to fund their dream and fund their business. And a lot of times that ends up being, a topic of conversation when it comes down to funding readiness, the myriad of ways that looks and those differences that it makes. If you knew, making sure that you had a certain policy in place or that you had a certain amount of collateral was the difference between you being able to expand your business and not. It makes that difference when it comes down to that prepared piece.
Right. All right. So I want to shift a little bit and help people to start to process, start putting themselves in the different categories, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about secured, we talked about unsecured. Who is who is unsecured ideal for?
So unsecured is going to be really, really good if you are in phase fresh ink to 2 years. The reason for that is because one of the main criteria for a traditional SBA loan, I'm not talking about, the disaster loans, those are a different category, the EIDL and things like that. But traditional SBA loans require you to have been in business for 2 years. The reason being, they want to see historical data. When you're trying to get fixed type of funding, right? So your loans, things are going to be on, terms anywhere from 12 months to, depending on what you're funding, 20 years or more. Those things are considered. And so when you're looking at the fact that first 2 years, you're going to have fluctuating expenses. A lot of the times, if you're hiring people, you're going to be hiring for the first time, that those team members may or may not work out. You may or may not have bookkeeping expenses you haven't thought about. You may or may not need professional services and marketing. There's all of these things that come up that tend to be these first couple years, these startup expenses, right? For a bank, that's really risky. So in a situation where we're saying, how do we manage our risk here? One of the things that they'll consider is, okay, if you're able to use just enough for your expenses and then pay that off each month as you get your expenses in, and you're not able to, you don't overextend yourself in the same way as you took this lump sum. Now, no matter what your sales are, no matter what happens, you're stuck making this payment. And you're in that fragile stage of that first 2 years while you're really getting everything together, you're going to want to consider that. So anything unsecured is going to be your friend. It's going to allow you to kind of play with those expenses, have a little bit more of that fluctuation. And then that way, if you do have a couple of months where you don't knock it out of the park and, or you have to switch systems, right? How many of us had to pivot during the pandemic? That cost a lot of us money, right? And so
Absolutely.
Being at a point where you can have those, having manage those flexible expenses like that, unsecured is going to be great for you. If you're a little bit more established, you're 2 years plus, and you have a little bit more of that time to wait a little bit for, maybe your SBA options are going to be better priced for you, but you put in the work, you've grinded it out, you've been in business 2+ years, you've got the historical financials that they want to see that are in place. That's when you kind of open up an additional pool of funding that you won't be necessarily eligible for in that startup phase of that first 2 years.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so now let's move in. Let's start creeping up that complexity scale, right?
Yes.
So for people who are 2 years plus, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're coming in, they're saying, I need XYZ amount of money. What types of things are you requiring of them to provide to you for you to start considering them? So, because I want people, even in those early years when you're first starting out, people just kind of, shoebox it, right? But if you really want to be in that position come 2 years to get that bigger loan, what should they be doing from the start, and what should those who are at that 2 years be handing you, when they come in and say, give me money?
So I'm gonna put on my underwriting hat, right? I'm gonna put on my former underwriter hat. Luckily, because I'm a consultant, I can speak to these things without making anybody mad. We tell people all the time we get to work for clients, but in conjunction with your lending partners. So what you want to have at the 2-year mark, and I'm gonna say something that your accountants don't have time to tell you. At the 2-year mark, you do not want to be showing a consistent business loss on your taxes. They do not want to see that. They don't want to see a loss. There are ways, and if you have a trusted accountant source, by all means, go to them and talk to them about this. But there are ways that you want to make sure that you are structuring your business where your expenses are managed, right? And that there are things that you can get credits back for, such as salary. So during PPP, for example, a lot of people missed out on opportunities to really, kind of re-inject that funding into their employees because they didn't have on record the expenses weren't matching up. So as you're preparing, as you're getting ready to say, hey, I need a big tranche of funding, especially when that amount is 50,000 plus, for the most part, anything that's 1,000 up to 50,000 is considered on the smaller scale. It's a lower risk profile. There's less of a deep dive into that. But then when you start, I'm 2 years plus, now I need 100,000, I need 200,000, whatever that amount is, I need those larger amounts. That deep dive is going to happen, and you want to be able to make sense of and justify where those expenses are going, and have them in order. If you're one of those people that you hate bookkeeping, like, let's be real. Like, I mean, I'll do it all day for my clients. Personally, like, I don't like it. Pay somebody for that. That's what your network is for, right? But have that stuff in order, have it ready to go. A lot of the battle is, in that initial phase when you first got that pre-approval. Great. Now you're all over the big hurdle. Now we got to get your documents in order. So we need you to have them, and then they need to make financial sense, i.e. if you were showing a loss consecutively, talk to your accountant about ways that you can make sure that you're structured properly, where you're showing what you're making, you're showing that profit, and you have those documents ready to go. And you can say, hey, Mr. Underwriter, here's my taxes. Here's 6 months of bank statements. Here's what you need. I'm not going to hold up the process. I want to help you help me get this $100,000.
Right. So a lot of times, I think, especially new businesses starting out, they'll want to show, and there's space for it in time. They'll want to show losses on returns, because then they're getting money back. They have less taxes that they have to pay if you weren't paying, taxes for your income all along. And so that has its place. But when whether you're starting out or whether you're at that 2-year mark, as soon as man, I think that I'm going to want to reach out to a third party for a loan or business credit to help take this venture further, that's when you got to go ahead and kind of straighten up, pay those quarterly taxes on time, Making sure that you can, cut those expenses so that you can start to show profit consistently each month because you're working towards a greater goal. Now, once you get those monies in, you and your accountant, that's between you guys, stay on the up and up,
Right.
stay on the up and up,
Friends, y'all friends.
Color in the lines.
Uh-huh.
But understand there's gray in those lines too,
be smart about the gray. Yes.
Yeah.
Clients, be smart about the gray areas. Yeah.
Be smart about the gray areas. Be strategic. Everything you do should have a strategy to it. It shouldn't just be rhyme or reason. That's the way that you're going to grow it faster. Will you make mistakes? Yes. That's okay. It's part of it. Guess what? Nobody will know unless you tell them. It's your business. Right. So, so keep that in mind. If you know that the business that you're trying to grow, the dream for your business involves it being a larger venture, then you need to take that into consideration when you're starting out. Sometimes people, I have a Facebook group called Starting a Business with Tanisha Coffey. Real smart, snazzy, huh?
Love it. Shameless plug. Yes.
Yes, shameless plug. Come on in. But like in that group, sometimes people will ask me the question, I want to start a business, but I don't have any money. And I tell them, I say, the first thing that you should be doing as a, soon to be entrepreneur is you start your strategy with how to get the money.
That's right.
So sometimes, I told one of the person, I said, sometimes you might need to look around your house. You got some things you need to sell, because that's a real easy way to start getting that first capital. If you need, say you're doing products and you need money to buy products to make what you want to make, you might need to look there. You might need to look in that checkbook and see, what are you paying for that you're not using? What can you cut out? These are ways that you can start to, quote unquote, get the money that you don't have. So sometimes it's starting there.
That's right. And what can you restructure? A lot of the times we don't consider, we say, well, I don't have the money. Well, how much did it cost you to get your hair done last month? How much did you spend on,
Starbucks.
Whatever it was, right? Starbucks or Chick-fil-A or, whatever. Or, I like to get my nails done too. How much did you spend on your nails? A lot of the times it's a matter of, how do I restructure this, or what do I have that I can use? And a lot of times, when we're doing an assessment for a client, we're doing that prep call. A lot of it's, well, what do we have? You don't have an extra $5,000 laying around here to do, whatever. Okay, maybe you don't have it in that form.
Right.
But, hey, you never touched that 401k that you had when you left your last job. You went head first into this business venture and you still have assets, that you can utilize to fund your dream. And then, a lot of times it's being able to have those conversations and be like, okay, no, we can get here. We can get here. We can get to where we need to get. It's all about leverage.
Right. And for those of you who don't know that, what she's talking about with that 401k is called a ROBS program. Rollover for business startups. So, for those of you who are worried about, I don't want to touch the money in my 401k because I'm not 59 and a half yet, and they're going to charge me this, that, and the other. Guess what? That's a way to do it. Okay. So sometimes, again, it's just looking beyond what seems the easiest. You heard about a loan, but a loan may not be the first step that you should be taking.
That's right.
It's a lot easier to show profit in those first 2 years if you haven't racked up a bunch of credit cards, because that means that you handled it without any help, or you do the credit cards to begin building your business credit. That's but right. You know that you have the capital to pay it off. So it's literally so you can show on paper, hey, I got this.
That's right.
Strategically, right?
That's right. It's all about that strategy.
So I want to talk a little bit about helping people understand the difference between a business line of credit and a business loan, because there is a difference.
Yes. So your business line of credit, again, that's going to be more, if you're in that 0 to 2 year mark, that's going to be your friend. If you're at a point where you have a lot of fluctuating expenses, or that's going to be something that's coming up for you, that's going to be your friend. That business line of credit is going to be there. That amount will be dependent upon, your individual credit profile and your credit worthiness. But that the business line of credit is designed where you can essentially use whatever amount up to that limit, continue to pay that down, pay that off, and have that revolving limit available. A business loan is going to be more, this is fixed. That's going to be if you're at a point where you can afford a consistent monthly payment each month, you're pretty set in where your expenses are, you're pretty set in where your general sales are or your general revenues are. You don't have a huge amount of fluctuation, so you're comfortable within that space. Business loan is going to be a great option for you. It's fixed, it's the same thing each month, it's reliable. It's something you're going to be able to budget and plan to budget within that difference. Also, from a business standpoint, from a lender standpoint as well, your line of credit versus your loan looks a little bit different. It's weighted a little bit different. So similar to how personal credit, a credit card weighs a little bit differently with your credit bureaus than an installment loan does. The same thing works for business credit as well. Generally, you're going to see a lot more correlation though with, business loans with more established businesses. So businesses that, you have been in business 2-3 years, you've shown that you can have that consistent, income track record over that period. And now you qualify for a loan based on you having those historical financials. When that's not the case though, and you need that fluctuation, or if you're in a really high growth period and you might have to have, a major expense the next month, and then you're going to immediately see that, pay off the following month, and you can count on that. You're going to get that right back. Lines of credit are great in instances like that as well.
So I want to, I love my strategy, love strategies. Mm-hmm. So let's kick it up another notch.
Yes.
Let's talk strategically. All right.
Yes.
So let's talk, people have done what they needed to do. They can qualify for whatever they want. The loan, the lines of credit, the loans, whatever they're looking for. Now, a lot of times people will look at loans and credit as liabilities, which in the generic sense, not talking financial world sense, yes, because you're going to owe somebody something for that. However, most of the major companies in our world and in history have gotten to be that way because they leveraged certain tools. Okay. From my hat, I would say the life insurance tools. Okay. They are definitely leveraging life insurance products to get where they want to be, but they're coupling it with loans and lines of credit. So from your perspective, I know you've worked with several different clients, big money we're talking about. What are some of the ways that people are leveraging these tools, either singularly or coupling them, to really take their business? Can you provide some examples?
Absolutely. So a lot of business owners are, and leverage is like the buzzword. I love that word. That's my favorite word. That's one of my favorite words for clients. So a lot of business owners will start out by leveraging multiple sources, multiple funding sources. And we generally recommend that. I don't know a single major business that has not used leverage to be able to get to the next level, and they leverage other people's money, or OPM, as everybody is, I'm sure at this point has heard it called. So, a lot of times that will look like, let me get this line of credit. If I know that I'm going to be approved, and ideally we're in positions, right, where we have strategically worked to be able to be approved for much more than we need. So let's say I really need 20,000, but I've been approved for 50. I want to be able to leverage that 20. And if I know that 20 grand is going to go into the right marketing programs, allow me to hire another part-time person, and I've done the math on that, and I've thought about that strategically, and I know that my output for that extra 20,000 is actually me making an extra 80,000, then when I make that extra 80,000, right, in the next 2 or 3 months, whatever I've leveraged out for that, a couple of things are then happening. One, I'm showing a bank from a historical, or any lender from a historical perspective, hey, I have what it takes and you can see it in my account. And then I'm also showing, hey, I have the ability to take this 20 grand that you gave me on credit and make that 80. So, I know what to do with it. And now that you know that I know what to do with it, let me go ahead and get this loan for this extra 80,000 that I need for working capital, so that I can go ahead and buy this extra equipment for my skincare business, because now that's just taken off and it's flying, and now I need more for that. So in an instance like that, we're taking two different forms. We're taking a line of credit and we're taking a loan, and we're leveraging the two of those. And if that 20 grand made me 80 grand and I just profited 60 grand from that, then what is that other 80 grand that I've now been able to get from the bank going to help me get? If we assume 4 or 5 times that, then that is how leverage works to then build me an Amazon or a, or a Tesla or whatever it is,
Right.
To be able to continue to make that happen.
All right. So I want to put some more on top of that, right? So that 60K that she's talking about that you got back in profit. So again, there's insurance products that you can put that money into. There's strategies, one called premium financing. So sometimes when you're getting those profits, especially when you're thinking long-term, that particular one is a long-term strategy. It's not put my money in and get it out in 6 months. This is thinking long-term, truly using OPM, because when you put the money into that, you're going to put it in for a certain amount of time, and then you'll have a bank that's going to be matching that multiple times over. So not just a match, not just like in a 401k employer match where you put in some, they put in some up to a certain percentage. No, with premium financing, they are literally, tripling what you're putting in. So that by the time kind of the process is said and done, the time period that the financing is going, you actually come out with your money tripled and doubled, and it frees you up, right? So while that money is growing off of their money, you still have your lines of credit.
That's right.
And you have your loans to keep operating in to generate more money to then put into it again. Because then you could put it in, you could put part of that if you did want that immediate access. There's another life insurance strategy that you could be using, product strategy that you could be using to make your money make more money that you do have immediate access to.
And I'm so glad that you, in the framework of talking about leverage and talking about making that money work. A lot of people, eventually you're gonna leave your business, or your business is gonna leave you. One of the two. We all got to go at some point. So when you're thinking about starting a business, hopefully you're starting with the end in mind, and you're saying, "Hey, I want to see this thing through," right? That's why you put your blood, sweat, tears, and firstborn into it, whatever the case is, right? But along those lines, a lot of people don't consider, when you have a line of credit, especially as you build up those larger lines of credit, that's an asset. That's a business asset that goes with the business. Should you decide to sell it, that's pure leverage. You're essentially saying, I have, or my business has this money. So even if I don't, guess what? The business is good for it. So being able to leverage those lines of credit long-term, great strategy. Especially when you're combining those things like, leveraging your insurance policies, leveraging your 401k. That's how you really grow exponentially.
Right. So you guys, what I want you to understand here, what we're telling you about today is things that, the big boys, this is what they're doing. Okay. This is what you need to be setting yourself up to do. Okay. Too often, small business owners stay small because you don't know better. If you've listened to this today, you're starting to know better. You have resources right here. You have Nia, you have me, and then you have the people who we're connected with, because I don't pretend to know everything about everything. But guess what? I bet you I know somebody who does, or somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. And so understand that this is the beginning of that journey for you to be able to do better. And I know some of you out there are listening and you're thinking, oh, it's a little scary, to do a loan, credit, I'm on the hook, that risk tolerance, it may be low, and I get it. But business works differently, especially once you cross over into that business credit and those business loans, particularly the business credit. You can tell me if I'm correct on the business loans too. Once you cross over, like business credit, they want you to use it. They want you to rack it up. Okay. So that you can then turn around and flip that money and make more, pay them off, and they don't care if it takes you a little time to pay it off, because guess what? They're earning interest off of you. So it's actually better for them. So it's and once you're able to flip over to the business credit, where it's on the company, your EIN versus your personal credit, those are viewed separately. So you still need to be responsible in both scenarios, but understand, once you get that business credit going, you can separate, and that fear that you have is not necessary, because it is separate.
That's right.
Keep that in mind, definitely. All right. So I want you to tell everybody, if you could, a little bit more, because Transcend Commercial Capital does a ton of different types of financing for small businesses. And so I want you guys to really listen closely, to kind of some of the things that they offer, because they may work for you, they may not, but either way, this is a resource for you. If they don't do it, they probably know, Nia probably knows who does. So tell us a little bit more about Transcend.
That's right. So Transcend Commercial Capital, first and foremost, we are here to be a resource to entrepreneurs and business owners. Where regardless of the stage of business that you're at, we probably have something that fits your needs. So whether it's unsecured business funding, so those lines of credit that Tanisha and I mentioned, luckily we get to work with our lending partners and for clients. So again, what that means is you let us know what you need, and we create a profile, and based on that profile, we can let you know what you qualify for. If you're not at a point yet where you're ready to qualify for some of the things that you might be interested in, we have a program that is especially designed for those entrepreneurs in that early stages, that will nurture you through the process, help you get that business credits established. There are ways to do it, even if you don't have, a lot of money, if you're not huge, you're a solopreneur, that doesn't matter. There are ways. So we can help you strategize. We can help you get the funding that you need, whether you're a first-time entrepreneur or a business owner that's been established a little bit, or you just need business credit. We can help with that too. Let us know, and we can help get you where you need to go so that you can expand your business, grow, scale, fund to your wildest dreams, do everything that you want to do for your business.
Right. So it can be, a little daunting when you're first entering this world. But if you never enter, then you're holding yourself back.
That's right.
The best thing you can do for yourself is to just find out. Have a conversation. You listen to this today. So that's step one. Step two is, go find out personally where you're at and what you would need to do, so you know the possibilities. If you don't know the possibilities, it's hard to dream and even imagine where you can go.
That's right.
And so, take the time to have the conversation, reach out to either one of us. We're happy to help.
That's right.
What's your website?
So you can find us at transcendcommercialcapital.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Transcend Commercial Capital, Instagram, Transcend Commercial Capital, pretty much all Transcend Commercial Capital. And we will make sure that you have our contact info so you can reach out as well. First thing you just got to do is just call, just find out, can't hurt. You waste a lot of time and lose a lot potentially waiting, but nothing to just see where you're at. So
Absolutely. All right, guys, you know the deal. You can find me on all social media at The Lofty Entrepreneur. And if you are interested in speaking to me on the financial side, then you're going to be looking for at Rock Solid Financial, or go to www.rocksolidfinancial.co. Happy to help as well. Nia, this has been amazing. Thank you. You met the challenge. Congratulations.
Thank you, Tanisha. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. And hopefully you guys learned a lot. So
Absolutely. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to have you back on again real soon. Thanks everybody for listening. If you haven't done so already, be sure to like and subscribe and to connect with both of us on social. All right, till next time, guys. Bye.
bye.